I'm at it again, breaking down yet another team's finish. Today, I'll be breaking down the Los Angeles Angels on today's action packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, at Matthew_Ane. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the bell below to subscribe to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you may listen. And if you want a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast, check us out on Subtext and become a member of the Diamond Club. You know, that's where you're going to get all your information for the offseason, redraft rankings, prospect rankings, dynasty rankings, asking us keeper questions, so much more stuff that we have on there, and updates and insights, even like little factoids that I've been thrown out from each episode that I feel need to be highlighted. Like maybe you just didn't click or didn't register because you're doing other things while you listen to the podcast. I drop a little notes that things you should highlight from the episode, which you should get out of it. So there's a lot more that's offered than this 30-minute podcast. I think you should check it out. Get a free 2 weeks just for joining. Links in the description below. I promise you won't be disappointed. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of MLB. Get Booking.com app today. And all right, guys, I got a great episode for you. We're going to break down the Los Angeles Angels today, and it's going to be a good time. Obviously they haven't had a good season, but I mean, Angels haven't had a good season in a bit. They're just a disappointing team overall. I'm kind of just like fed up with, Mike Trout being stuck there, but that's his choice. The team as a whole isn't really wonderful. These first couple episodes that we're going to be breaking down to aren't going to be great. We're starting from bottom up. And, here we are talking about yet another bottom feeder team, and possibly some futures, but, I don't think I'm going to have enough time to get through it. I thought I was going to get through it on the White Sox, and hey, ended up not even getting to it. So I'm not going to even set that expectation, but I will say this, right? There is some upside to this team. If you're a fan of the Angels, there's some young talent that I like. There is some, and then you can just explain away the rest. So let's get into it. They finished 63 and 98 on the season. Obviously, bad record. Obviously, they're at the bottom of the barrel. Second worst team in all of baseball this year. Luckily they didn't finish like the White Sox and get a historic, loss record, but it still happened. Mike Trout was hurt for most of the season. They traded away their closer. Guys just weren't able to perform this year. And, it's just been a roller coaster of a ride being an Angels fan. And, let's start with just like the moves they made during, trade deadline. And we'll start with Carlos Estevez being moved over to the Philadelphia Phillies, where, he's been super successful since joining the Phils. I actually am really glad they got them because they needed a closer. And, quite honestly, he was just wasting away in LA because the opportunities just really weren't there. If you really look at it, you know, his total saves on the year were 20 with the Angels, but that's, like 29 appearances versus 18 appearances with the Phils, and getting 6 saves over that time in 21 innings. Now it's wild that he got that many opportunities, but the saves don't really come as much with a team that wins. Whereas the Angels, you know, if they're going to win a game, it's probably going to be tight. Now that's a benefit, but how often are they actually winning games? Well, only 63 times. So the opportunity isn't going to be there. Whereas you literally flip the record around, and you're close to what the Phillies have won this year. So you just got to look at it in those regards, right? Like the opportunity for next year is going to be pretty high. I actually like Estevez's landing spot. I feel like he's not going to waste away. He's a really good closer, in my opinion. He's going to be a top like 12 for me. Don't know where he's going to finish in that yet, but he's been pretty good for about 3 years now. And you know what? I trust him and I like him in this spot. So Estevez, great landing spot. Love to see him leave the Angels at this point. Let's talk about Mike Trout. My guy was dealing with some injury, Yeah, and when I say injuries, it's really just one injury. He tore his meniscus, and that's obviously season ending. That's unfortunate. I think Mike Trout is broken down at this point. Unfortunately for him and us as baseball fans, I mean, he's up there in the latter part of his years where he's 33 years old for baseball. You might as well be a grandpa. When he plays, he's one of the best bats in baseball. He's super productive. It's just, hey, like, how many at bats are we really going to see from him? And you look starting from like, let's see, from essentially, you know, 2021. Let's go from there. Let's give it a fair expectation. 117 at bats, 438, 308, 109 now. Like, it's ugly. But here's the thing, though. He's one of the best bats in baseball when healthy. Even in 2022, we only saw 438 at bats. He already had 40 home runs through that season. We're just not getting the stolen bases with it. But I mean, hey, I'm okay with it. 40 home runs, batting 283, 300 is in the realm of possibilities for him. He's awesome. Even this year, before like the injury, he had 126, 109 at bats. He had 10 home runs through that little stint. He was killing it. He was one of the best players in baseball this year when healthy. So, like, I was all about Mike Trout this year, and I thought he was coming at a value too. He's going to come at a value next year, but we got to look at Mike Trout this year and just go, okay, cool. Like, Mike Trout is going to be awesome when he's healthy. Just how long and when is he going to get hurt? So it comes with a risk, and him being 33 this year just kind of changes it a little bit, makes it a little bit less sexier. So, like, where I could possibly see him going is like sixth, seventh round now. Whereas like he already fell to the third, where like you wouldn't be able to get him outside of the second in the past. So now Mike Trout has fallen from grace essentially. I'm still trying to add him. I don't think that it's a bad ad. I'll definitely take the gamble. I just won't put him and Luis Roberts on the same team. Where unfortunately, that was my recommendation this year. So sorry on that one, guys. Sorry, I needed some coffee. But Mike Trout, I think this year going into 2025 is going to be a real nice, discount. And I'm willing to take the risk. I think that he's going to be a great ad. He's going to be somebody that we're going to be counting on week in and week out. So, like for Mike Trout, if my prediction is right, because obviously drafts aren't happening for 2025 yet, if he's going in the fifth, sixth, seventh round, that's a home run smash pick. I can't wait to see how ADP kind of breaks down. Obviously, comes with some risk, probably the highest risk reward kind of situation in all of baseball. But man, if Mike Trout can even put together 400 at bats next year, that ceiling is outrageous. It's better than most of the league. So Mike Trout is somebody you can't really pass up on. I mean, you got to look at it like this too. How do we handle, I don't know, Clayton Kershaw, right? Clayton Kershaw started off the season hurt. Clayton Kershaw goes down every year, like without fail, right? There's a back injury that always happens. He misses a month to half a season, then he comes back and he's one of the best arms in baseball. Why can't that be Mike Trout's, narrative essentially? Because it's not like the talent has disappeared. It's not like any of the tangible stuff that makes him Mike Trout, except for maybe the base running, which again, I don't expect him to do at 32 years old, 33 years old, right? So you look at it, you go, okay, cool. This is the scenario. I'm going to get one of the best bats in baseball on a discount. I'm just not going to have him for half the season. But I'm also not paying a top 3 round pick to get him. So I'm willing to take that gamble. There's other guys out there that are going to go in that round. Like let's put it this way. This is what my predictions are for like a round ADP who's going to be kind of bunched together. Him and Royce Lewis, him and Luis Robert, him and a couple other guys that are going to be, around that area that has the same kind of tag and same kind of upside. But who are you going to want to bank on, right? Is it Mike Trout, one of the best players in baseball for the last decade, or a guy that strained his hamstring his first at bat, even though he looked awesome? You know, it's just one of those things where you just got to go, okay, cool. You know, can we say, hey, are we going to be able to bank our season on the production of Mike Trout? Coming up next, I got a bunch of awesome names for you. We're going to start talking about Taylor Ward and, what's the real expectation for him now for 2025 and pretty much his rest of his career. Zach Neto, how am I handling him? Where do I possibly see him being ranked in my rankings next year? And Nolan Schanuel, is Mr. BA is what I call him, Mr. Batting Average, going to continue being this good behind the plate with plate discipline? And is he going to amount to anything and kind of more than just that and kind of be more than, a rise and kind of start showing up because the kid did have a great prospect talent. So we'll see. That's coming up next. We're talking about our friends over at FanDuel. When you have a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play by play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets at fanduel.com. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at that's fanduel.com. And guys, since you're placing that $5 bet, I might as well give you something to go on, right? Bet against my Giants. Just do it, right? Daniel Jones sucks. Okay. Thursday night football, just take it out of your mind. There's nothing there for you. Just ignore it. All right. Malik Neighbors is going to miss this weekend, probably because of that concussion. So there's a world and an opportunity. One, pick them to lose. Do the under on their score. Pick the lowest possible passing yards that are available for Daniel Jones. Um, the rushing yards, you might want to, vary that one. That's probably the only consistent stat that Daniel Jones has. And, maybe do total receptions on Wan'Dale Robinson because Wan'Dale Robinson seems to get 12 targets a game. So, if he comes down with like 8 of those, boom, it's probably an easy bet. So, that's where I'm going this weekend, going into the next week. Let's see what happens. I guarantee you'll get that $5 bet to return. And then on top of that, you'll get that $200 bonus guaranteed only at FanDuel. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On MLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Exploring my skills on Prize Picks this season has an extra layer of excitement to daily fantasy sports. You can now win up to 100 times your money. On Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 really fast. Prize Picks is incredibly user-friendly. I can make my selections, submit my entries in less than 60 seconds. And as a host of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, I'm going to get you going for the first round of the playoffs. Opt for Alec Bohm to have higher than 0.5 total hits in his next outing. Opt for Aaron Judge to have higher than 0.5 home runs in his next game. And opt for Corbin Burns to have higher than 7.5 strikeouts in his next start. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Again, use the code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDON on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed, so go do it. Prize Picks, run your game. Are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day? Have you had to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on the Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Now, this one's great, guys. We're in the offseason now, so you don't want to miss out on our rankings for redraft, dynasty, prospect rankings. You don't want to miss out on any of the stuff that we have to offer for this offseason to help you bring home the win in 2025. Draft prep starts now. And if you have keeper questions, dynasty questions, anything of the sort, because those seasons never turn off, join now. Links in the description below. Okay. Get a free 2 weeks. So check us out. I promise you won't be disappointed. But let's get back in the show and let's start talking about our boy Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward, honestly, I love him as a talent. He just can't live up to the hype, in my opinion. Let's break down a season. Let's talk about it and kind of go from there. 581 at bats, 73 runs, 26 doubles, 2 triples, 25 bombs, 75 ribs, 6 stolen bases. Batting 248 on the year, 325 OBP, a slug of 429, and an OPS of 753. Now, the thing about Taylor Ward is, one, he's a little streaky, so when he's hot, he's hot. And two, the runs and ribbies just haven't been there because of a team standpoint. The home runs numbers aren't atrocious. I'm not mad at it. 25 home runs in a season is great, but it comes too much in bunches, and like it's not consistent play all year. And then the 248 batting average is killing me. In 2022, when like he really became relevant in a lot of places, even though it was his age 28 season, that was his like true like coming out party, because he just, was like, hey, I played 495 at bats for the first time, and hey, I'm here. And then of course injuries. But that was his like breakout year, and it was looking great. But then I wasn't able to follow through with that in 2023, which again, Dom and I always say we really don't buy the late age hitter breakout season, and age 28 is that thing. I kind of like fooled myself because I just liked the raw material that made Taylor Ward so good. And yeah, we saw an improvement this year, but again, it's not enough. Taylor Ward is falling down my draft board. In terms of one prioritization, ranking, etc. I don't think he's going to be on any of my teams next year unless it's a deep league where I'm like in a 15-man league, or I have to worry about, left, right, center field kind of leagues where, I need the flexibility for those kind of leagues. Other than that, like Taylor Ward is just like, whatever, bro. I'm just not really looking at him. He's a great streaming candidate or end of a bench for an off day to start off the season to see if I can get any production early. Other than that, Taylor Ward for fantasy baseball is absolutely irrelevant for me. Um, until he shows me otherwise. But I don't think it's going to come at what age 31 season. When did he turn 30? December 14th. So by the time season starts, he's going to be 31 years old. I don't see a breakout year. I don't see it coming. I just at this point, like he is who he is. You know, a decent streamer, a decent production, but whatever. Taylor Ward, just get him out of your head. Hold on, let's. I just want. Sorry about that. Let's move on. Let's talk about Zach Neto, shortstop for the Los Angeles Angels. And man, I love him. He's young. He's a young pup. He's 23 years old. I was excited when he got the call in 2023. I was pretty excited. I caught a lot of flack for my hype, but you know what? I was right. Like this kid had the makings of being a stud. Now, it's not a full blown, like, oh my God, this is a full blown breakout, but I like to see this from a 23-year-old, right? 542 at bats, 70 runs, 34 doubles, a triple, 23 bombs, 77 ribs, 30 stolen bases. You know, I would like to see the walks and strikeouts get a little bit better because he had 39 walks, 140 strikeouts. He had a 249 batting average, a 318 OBP, a slug of 443, an OPS of 761. Like, not a bad season. Actually, kind of strong for a young dude. Like straight up. Like I knew the power existed. I think there's another level to that too. I think there's a 30-30 season in the realm of possibilities. The batting average is the question mark. What is an actual floor for him? Because you looked in the minors, which very limited, right? 23 before getting the call, he only had about like 40 at bats and he was batting 400. That don't count. And then you look at like 2022, he only had a 447. He was batting 299. So like, is 249 his true baseline? Because that affects his value. But a guy that can do 30-30, which again, I think is the upside here. Don't quote me on it. I don't know if it's going to happen yet. I have to run my numbers still. But like, I'm looking at him and I do see a realm of possibilities. Like you look at it, right? The kid had 542 at bats with 23 home runs, a couple things swing in the right direction and boom, there's 7 more home runs through next year, and we're there. The 30 stolen bases, I think, is legitimate. Like, I think we're gonna get that kind of production pretty well. Like, let me try and get a little bit more on the advanced stat aspect, but Zach Neto really does provide that for us. So, look, his base running is pretty great, like 73 percentile. So, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's fast. And you look at his underlying stats, and it's a little underwhelming. But there was a little slow start, even though he had such a hot spring. He was, almost like kind of like brutal to watch at the first half of that season. And I was just like, come on, bro. I know you're better than this. You got me all hyped too for like, you know, what his spring training said had and was like getting me all hype. He had a great spring training. He was showing off that power. He was showing off everything he can humanly do. And, it just didn't come to fruition. And then, the first half was kind of ugly, but the second half is where it's like really like enticing me to be like, okay, this is part of my take. This is why I feel the way I do. Right. Like, let's pull this up. So, first half, he had about 12 home runs, 42 ribs, 14 stolen bases, and things started coming together. And then still, second half, another 11 home runs. Like, it was great. Batting average was still the same, but like stolen bases, 16 in the second half. It got better. April, he had about 2 home runs. May, he took off. He had 4 home runs. June, he had 5. July slowed down just a tad. It was a lower month, but he was batting 279, but the power really wasn't there with only 2. But then August, he showed off with 7 home runs. 7 home runs. It was fantastic, but the batting average was way down. And then September, October, he had about 3. Like, it's not great, but it's it just comes in bunches. But those big numbers of the 7 home runs, the 5 home runs, the 4 home run months, there's a world and a possibility where, a couple of those months, Add like, 2, just make it like a consistent 4 across the board. We're chilling. Now, the only thing that kind of scares me is every time he hits for power, the batting average comes down essentially. But let's see. He's got to find a balance between, the launch angle for pulling the ball and, hitting the ball for hitting the ball just in play to, make things a little bit better for himself. I think it's going to come. I think that, I'm Zach Neto is going to be the guy that we're going to be like, this is a sneaky little pick at shortstop next year. So I'm all about Neto this year. Let's just keep our eye on him. I can't wait to see where I'm going to rank him. But coming up next, guys, we're going to be talking about Nolan Schanuel, Logan O'Hoppe, and Joe Adell possibly, and then maybe a pitcher. We'll see what happens. We got 30 minutes, about 10 minutes left in the show, so we'll see. But that's coming up next. Exploring those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn about, other baseball cities. Maybe it's time to taste test your baseball's competition stadium cuisine. Luckily, on Booking.com, you can find the stadium to stay that just right for you. With Booking.com's wide variety of choice across the US, you can go incognito to your baseball rival city. The right stay can make you a fan of any US city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, Booking.yeah, and I can tell you what, I used Booking.com long before they became a sponsor of the show. I love Booking.com. They always hook it up with the great price. They have easy in-app. Love the product. It actually is great. Take advantage. Take a look. I promise it won't disappoint, guys. Booking.com. It really is Booking.yeah. All right. We're going to get back in this. We're going to finish this show out. We're going to round out. All right. Let's talk about Mr. Nolan Schanuel. So, like, here's the thing with Nolan Schanuel. I don't really know exactly what to expect from this kid, other than the fact that he actually can hit the ball. You know, like, I know that he can bat for average, even though it really didn't show out this season. It was actually kind of weird for me, even though the walk to strikeout ratio is pretty nice, right? 68 walks to 103 strikeouts. He was batting 250 though, which really boggles my mind. He had 275 last year through 109 at bats with his first lick of baseball, first lick of bigs, and pretty much he was drafted that year too. He literally thrusted himself to the starting lineup to get in there to see, okay, cool, I'm that good. I'm here. I'm ready to play. So Shanuel just really thought he was going to thrust himself to be a stud in this lineup. And what I will say about Nolan Shanuel too is like you look at like his pedigree coming up from college when he was playing at Cal. I mean, I apologize. Florida Atlantic. And you look at like the last college season he had in 2023. He had like 200 he had 197 at bats. He had 70 runs in that time, 18 doubles, 4 triples, 19 bombs, 64 ribs, 14 stolen bases, and he batted 447. It's absolutely wild that like a guy that kind of like showed that like, hey, he's got power, he's got speed ish, and he could hit for average with great plate discipline. Like you look at it, like his college stats, 71 walks to 14 strikeouts. Like that's insane. I mean, obviously that's not sustainable in the bigs, but here's the crazy part: when he got to the minors across rookie A and double A, he had 21 walks to 10 strikeouts. Craziness. Was batting 365. He really did have a good eye. Obviously, it's a big difference between double A and the bigs. Like, don't get me wrong, but I would have expected better numbers, especially like you look at also 2023 when he got the call. He finished the season with 20 walks and 19 strikeouts and still batting that 275, like flyouts and things like that obviously affect it. But like, those are great numbers. And even this year, like, okay, cool. So 251, I don't think is actually like real. I think more like a 275, 280. I think maybe at some point as his eye gets better and as he grows as a player because he's 22 years old, you know, we start seeing better batting average and numbers entirely. Now, what's disappointing for me is the power. I thought there'd be more. Just looking at his, stats, the pace, things like that. Obviously, difference in aluminum and wood bats. Don't get me wrong. I understand all the different aspects, right? Just figured we would have saw a little bit more power. I figured we would have saw a little bit more speed, potential, things like that. Especially with having 519 at bats. The guy's young. He's 22 years old. It takes a little bit of time. It really does. And he's 6'4", 220 pounds. Like there should be more to this kid's game. So how does this affect us 2025? Absolutely nothing. I'm not drafting him. And if I do, it's going to be lower in the draft, and we're going to see what happens. And then, if we start seeing the spring training, things change. Like you got to look at it like this. You got to stay like water. It's the best quote I ever heard. Shout out to the fantasy footballers. Best quote I ever heard. You guys stay like water. Keep your head on the swivel, right? Things are allowed to change. Things are going to change. So you can't just like, okay, this is it. This is my opinion of the guy. You get tunnel vision. No. Nolan Schanuel starts showing what we saw in college, what we started seeing in the minors that thrusted him onto the MLB lineup. He could be a difference maker. I think it's a long shot at this point for at least 2024, 2025. But I think we might start seeing some of it next year. So just keep an eye out. Got to keep right here. This team does not impress me whatsoever. There's not much of. I'm not gonna have many shares of the Angels at that point, right? It's really just Mike Trout and Zach Neto for me. And I'm really not really going to try and go and reach for anybody, because this team is just super inconsistent. Even my boy Logan O'Hoppe, who's up next, right? Logan, big fan. Going in the offseason, I really thought he was going to be good this year. He really just kind of like pooped the bed. Really disappointing. He'll finish with a 244 batting average, I might add. Like, man, this was a flop of a season. He had 479 at bats, managed to stay healthy this year, 64 runs, 17 doubles, 20 bombs, 56 ribs, 2 stolen bases, 244 batting average, OBP of 303, a slug of 409, an OPS of 712. Like, Logan O'Hoppe, I just expected more. The power is right on par. I just thought the batting average would have been just better. You look at his minor league stats, 375 batting average when he was there, but it was short. But even when he was on the Phils, 283 batting average, 270 batting average, 367, one bad season in 2019, but it was like 162 at bats and he had 216 batting average. Like that doesn't count. Like I just figured we would have saw a little bit better. Like truly, I really did. Like especially 2022, the year he got traded. You know, 70 walks to 74 strikeouts. Like the dude has a good eye, and we're not seeing it this year. 33 strikeouts, 33 walks to 55 strikeouts, 155 strikeouts. Ugh, come on, man. I understand it's really not you got nothing to play for in LA. Don't get me wrong, but like, yo, you're better than this. You can be productive. So like, come on, bro. So long story short, with Logan O'Hoppe, this is how I'm taking it, right? 2 catcher league, that's where he's gonna be drafted, or if we're gonna just, punt catcher, which normally is what my strategy is, I don't take one till the last couple rounds because I'm not paying up. We saw what Rutschman production is, Will Smith's production this year, and any top, air quotes, top catcher, they're not living up to the hype, you know? They're not worth that first round pick. They're not worth the risk and the gamble. Not first round pick, but the top 100 pick. Like, it's just not worth it anymore to go after these guys. There's no Buster Posies. There's no anybody that you would say is worth it. Even JT Realmuto is not in his prime anymore. Like it's done, right? There's no more elite talent right now. Rutschman is the only one that has the upside to do it, but I'm not spending a top 100 pick on these guys anymore. And the draft strategy always works. You just say, okay, cool. You push aside all the catchers, get them out of your head, load up on outfielders and all the tough positions in the early rounds, and round out your lineup. And then you pretty much are like, okay, cool. I start picking my bench players, and the rest of my rotation for pitching, and boom, here you go. And then if I end up with Logan O'Hoppe as my starter, I could scream it all the way out to the end of the season, especially in 2 catcher leagues. 1 catcher leagues, it kind of elevates catcher position just a hair because I got to start 2 every week. I don't like 2 catcher leagues because I think it's the most useless, fantasy baseball position there. You got to start it because there's actually a starting lineup position for it, but I don't think you need 2. I think it's kind of garbage. Like I'm just good. Like I don't want anything to do with like two catcher leagues. I just don't believe in them. But you know, Logan O'Hoppe, I feel is a great two catcher league. Pit like bare end catcher 1 at this point. But we're gonna deal with it. Single catcher leagues, we're gonna be streaming all year long. It's just the strategy week to week. Who's hot? That's who's going on my lineup. And maximize that position to get the most production out. And Logan O'Hoppe is not going to be long term, but he's a guy that has upside. And if he takes off, and then you're gonna reap the benefits. If not, you drop him like he's hot. I'm not even gonna play the drop. You know what I'm saying? But it's just one of those guys you just don't care. But all right, thank you guys so much for being here. I love you guys. Greatest fans on the planet. You guys are awesome. Please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, share the show with everybody. We want to bring 2025 to the best year we've had so far. It's crazy. We've already been with Locked On for 2 years. Excited for year 3. And, couldn't have done it without any of you guys. Please share, grow this show with us so we can continue doing this. And guys, when you're done watching us, because we know we're first listen each and every day. Check out my boy Sully over at Locked On MLB. My guy is awesome. He's going to be covering all this playoff coverage all postseason long. Check him out. With that being said, guys, great rest of your day. Peace.